Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Got me. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios, man. We got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all of the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to Monday. Monday at the tail end of a beautiful weekend. Hope y'all enjoyed it. And we got a full slate for you today, and Big Rig is on the board. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. Y'all have a good one?
Yeah, I had a good weekend.
Yeah, y'all got some doings done. You told me.
Yep.
Hitting the trade shows and doing the things and hanging out with the kids and all that stuff, right?
Yep. And I went to a show this weekend too.
Oh, now
the old band that I used to be in.
Yeah.
I went to go see them.
Where were they playing at?
Birmingham at the Iron City.
Nice. Well, good deal, man. But it wasn't near as good without you in the band, though, was it?
No, they were still pretty good.
That was your chance. You could have said something. Yeah. All right. And we got a great show laid on for you today. 3 o'clock today, my friend Becky Garrettson, who is the executive director of the Eagle Forum of Alabama, she will be on the air with us, giving us an update on some pretty solid stuff, conservative stuff that is making its final traverse through the legislative process. I mean, listen, y'all, there's like 4 legislative days left. This is like that moment when you can feel the tension in the House and the Senate because they want to get stuff passed, but they're dealing with filibusters and they're dealing with people who can't quite get on board. And then do we have the votes? It gets nuts. But we'll talk about it with Becky Garrettson, Executive Director of Eagle Forum, 3 o'clock today. And then at 3:30, and I love bringing her on because she's so dynamic, but Hannah Stevens, formerly known as the UA Sign Girl. Listen, this one individual knows more about sports than anybody I know. I mean, she can quote chapter and verse. She can give you stats. She can talk about things, and she does it with a passion. And she also just loves the Lord and is super conservative. So she fits right in. So Hannah Stevens, 3:30 today, we'll do some time with her talking about what happened on the NFL draft. And then, oh, by the way, she wrote a piece on social media this past weekend that I saw, because this past weekend was the anniversary of the 2011 tornadoes. She was a student at the University of Alabama when it hit the campus in Tuscaloosa. And we'll talk to her about that because it was her write-up to me was one of the most epic write-ups I have seen on the issue. So, yeah, Hannah Stevens at 3:30, and then there's still a whole triple dipper. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So in conjunction with our discussion with Becky Garrettson, home fries. Oh my gosh, I got some stories like what happened at the mullet toss. First of all, did you know we had a mullet toss? It's a big deal, y'all. Big deal down yonder on the coast. The mullet toss. Big Rig's giving me the look right now like he's not so sure about this. Mullet toss.
Is that a fish?
It's a fish, not a haircut. It's a fish.
Okay, I was just checking this as a fish because I know mullet the fish.
And then number 2 on the Triple Dipper, Right Sports with Hannah Stevens. We'll talk about some stuff that's happening in the world of sports, especially the NFL draft. And how did Auburn and Alabama fare? I'm an Auburn fan, so I'm going to let her tell us. And then number 3, even right now, both the big screens up here in the studio are showing what is happening at University of Texas in Austin and Columbia University in New York. I'm calling this whole section Protesting the Protesters because what I am loving right now is some of these kids getting spanked because it's happening. It is happening. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, going to tell you about how the kids is getting it to them, all right? That's number 3 on the Triple Dipper, Protesting the Protesters. All right, let me turn over here to my Rightside Way monologue and remind you guys that Southern Immediate Care is the chain of clinics that covers a huge swath of ground across North Alabama. Places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 6 more locations around the Birmingham area. They are open 7 days a week at every location. And oh, by the way, they will see all ages. and they are the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way monologue, and we're proud of it. So here's the deal. Like many of you, I am watching with a mixed sense of disgust and disbelief at some of the protests going on around our nation. I mean, the focus is largely on college campuses where these post-pubescent knuckleheads call for the death of Israel and for the U.S. to abandon Israel as an ally. But some of the protests have turned from being a matter of opinion and a right to free speech into something far more sinister. Something that I believe goes straight to the heart of the real intent of those behind the protests. This past weekend, video emerged of protesters on the campus of Harvard University, allegedly one of the greatest institutions of higher learning in the world. The same Harvard University that has spawned numerous American presidents and whose charter dates back to the mid-1600s, the 1600s, when it was founded by Puritans. Harvard's earliest motto was Veritas Christo et Ecclesia, which is Latin for truth for Christ and the church. There are bronze tablets that flank one of the gates on the Harvard campus with a statement from members of the Massachusetts Bay Colony who determined that after God had brought them to this great land, that a college was needed to train up educated leaders. Listen, I'm going to tell you, this nation was founded, one nation under God. Harvard University was a part of that. And the blessings that we have seen as a nation, I believe, are directly attributable to the absolute benevolence of an almighty God who gave favor to us. And this past weekend, the Harvard campus saw anti-American protesters take down the American flag and replace it with a Palestinian flag. Let that sink in. The oldest and most vaunted campus in the U.S. just had protesters who felt brash and emboldened enough to tear down the flag of the nation that built that university from scratch and claw out in the wilderness of the new land. Well, that's my flag. That's our flag. You can have your opinion, but you can't have our flag. On June 14th of 1777, the Continental Congress approved the design of our national flag. History's important, y'all. Knowing who we are and where we've been is part of knowing where we should go and why. And part of that is knowing what you believe. Well, I believe I am a conservative. I am a conservative American. I am a conservative American because of things like freedom, actual liberty, limited government, fiscal conservatism in the form of low taxes and reduced government spending, strict construction of the Constitution, the equal application of the law. I love this country. I love it for what it is, not just what I want to fix it to be. And I love the flag that stands as a symbol of our country. Now, having said that, I imagine that some of my liberal trolls are out there firing up their laptops, working up some of that keyboard courage to let me know that liberal progressives and campus agitators, they can love their country too. Sure. But more often than not, their love for this country is conditional. It's fluid, if you will. The progressive side of society believes this nation ought to be torn down and remade in some form of a Marxist utopia. I reject that notion completely, utterly and completely. I believe that there's always room for improvement. But the change for change's sake is a lack of wisdom. Conservatives, we believe in improving the finer points of our nation, but liberals believe in just plain breaking it so they can build something different. You know, I had one of those moments not long ago. You know, the kind where you find yourself yelling at the TV or the radio? I was driving down the road listening to Bret Baier on Fox News interview a former Democrat chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Adam Smith, a Democrat from Washington State. And in the course of the interview, this man who had once presided over one of the most important committees in Congress, the one that has oversight over our men and women in uniform, he had the audacity to say to Bret Baier on national TV that, quote, taking the stance that America is exceptional has too often got us into trouble. It's like, what? Well, I take exception to his exception to our exceptionalism. How about that? I don't know if Congressman Smith has ever worn a uniform. I don't really care, but I have. And multiple generations of my family have. And let me break it to him not so gently. Yes, we are an exceptional nation. Have you ever seen the American flag patch worn on the right sleeve of the field uniform of our current U.S. Army? It's the only patch worn in color on an otherwise subdued uniform. It's also, if you look at it, seems to be facing backwards, but it's not. It's intentionally designed so the stars are towards the soldier's front as if the flag is being carried forward into battle, forward and not backward. God bless the person who designed that patch. That flag patch is designed to inspire forward progress, and you can only move forward when you're on your feet. Kneeling at the flag is not only an insult, it's a sign that the one who is kneeling has no intention of pushing forward. Y'all, the day that we begin to accept without question the gall of those who would kneel at the national anthem, disrespect our flag, or consider us to be less than other nations, and yet enjoy the freedoms of our grand country, the day we just let that slide is the day that we begin the official decline into historic obscurity. Look, I'm a conservative American. As such, I believe in my country, simply because it is my country, and to be honest, simply because it's the best. I'm conservative. I'm a conservative American, and as such, I will stand at the anthem. I will pledge my allegiance, I will salute the flag, and I will serve when called upon to protect and defend it. Yeah, I'm a conservative American. And as such, I'm okay with saying that for all its warts and blemishes, this is still the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Blessed by God, built by sweat and toil, defended by honor and sacrifice, and preserved by blood and fire. I also believe that for all its might and power, this nation is at the same time fragile. Fragile in the sense that we willingly preserve the rights of those who would dishonor it because we believe that they do have a right to so freely speak without penalty. It's their right to disrespect the flag to some degree, but it's not their right to tear it down. I'm a conservative American, and therefore I refuse to stand idly by and let their insults and dispersions become the norm. In his 1989 farewell address to the nation, President Ronald Reagan, he warned us that we must internalize and institutionalize a love of country. Reagan said this, he said, quote, "An informed patriotism is what we want." But then he asked this question. He said, quote, "Are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world?" Well, let me tell you, somebody failed miserably in the raising and the teaching of those fuzzy-faced Harvard protesters. Look, I accept the fact that for America, or love for America, it's a concept that is alien to many. It's just too many. But this is my country. It's my team. It's my home. It's the place where my son, myself, my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather all entered the military service, pledging to uphold and defend the Constitution. I'm a conservative American, y'all. I do not apologize for the fact that I believe that our nation is in fact exceptional. I'm a conservative American, therefore I will answer the lies and the disrespect of the left by letting it be known that I believe they're wrong. But I also believe that we must continue as conservatives to move further, faster, and fight harder than the liberal progressives who would love nothing more than to tear our country down and to relegate us as a people to some kind of form of mediocrity on the world stage. Not on my watch. I was present for a speech that was given by former President George W. Bush back in 2011. At the end of his speech, he was thanked for his sacrifices as president. And his simple response was to say, "There's no sacrifice in serving a nation you love." So yeah, I'm a conservative American like many of you. I am patriotic. I love this country, and I believe with all my heart that yes, God has made this country exceptional by granting of his favor. And I will use this platform and any other that God gives me to make that known and make it known again and then make it known again. Now, if somebody would please go tell Harvard to get their act together and run Old Glory back up that pole, I'd appreciate it. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Well, there you have it. And yes, I'm watching as these institutions of higher learning, oh, it's higher, it's much higher. They're high on something, but as they allow the protests to go on, it's also amazing the states that are not allowing it to go on. And that's almost fun. We'll talk about that too later today. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, making it cool to be a conservative. Text lines blew up. Text lines are open. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. We'll hear from you both ways. John from Huntsville did just text in. He says, Phil, awesome monologue. Definitely one of your best ever. Thank you, brother. Said, I've given you 10 extra points. Don't waste all of them at one time. That was like a compliment and a backhanded compliment all at the same time.
It seems like your monologue's the best it's ever been every time.
No, it just keeps exceeding the previous ones. That's what's happening. I love how he tells me not to waste my points once I've gotten them. Okay. Morgan from Fort Myers, Florida, says, I hope the association that these people feel with a terrorist group will land them on a terrorist watch list. Listen, I'm going to tell you, Morgan, I'm watching the news right now, and like in Columbia University, they were given a deadline. Well, they were given a deadline a few days ago and didn't respond to it, but they were given a deadline today. The deadline is come and gone. The protesters are apparently still defying the school to leave. We're hearing the NYPD is going to show up and roust them out, and I hope they do. They need to. I mean, you can't set a deadline and then not enforce it. That just makes you a toothless tiger at that point. It's embarrassing. It does nothing for the credibility of the actual organization of the school, and it calls into question whether the administration is even in charge of their own campus and can provide security for anybody else on the campus at that point. So they're boxed in. The administration has nothing but to get them off the campus, and they're being threatened with full suspension. I'll talk about a lot of this stuff, later in the show. Third Dipper is protesting the protesters. But, I mean, these kids are some of them who are students. I mean, I think some are not. But some of them who are students are looking at losing their future for what? For a cause that they apparently know nothing about. Frank from Madison, Alabama says, in 1948, when the surrounding Arab countries declared war on the new Jewish state, they called on the Muslim population to remove themselves to Gaza and the West Bank until the new Jewish state was eliminated. They could return to their homes. That's why those two enclaves exist. Indeed. Those Muslims that remained in their homes were integrated into Israeli life. How many of the demonstrators bothered to research this? None. They don't care. They don't care about truth. They don't care about whether or not there's any validation to their points or not. They just have a mantra, and they want to get. They're swept up in the moment right now, most of them, and they're just out there just having big doings and how neat it is. Gonna wear my my keffiyeh scarf and pretend that I know something about something, and the next thing you know, they're gonna be out of school. Jeff from Indiana says, "Hey Phil, I think the history teachers that cut these kids have dropped the ball." He said, I think they've been teaching history like on the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, Fractured Fairy Tales, where they get the story halfway right, but they always put a biased spin on it. I'd forgotten about that. I may have a new monologue coming about Rocky and Bullwinkle. Thank you, Jeff. He says, tomorrow the story is teach history good or bad, but the facts are not. But then the facts are not the spin. Missy from Faultville just said, amen. Thank you, Missy. Appreciate you. Michael from Taft, Tennessee says, amen. All they have to do is call, and I'll come out of retirement and serve. Michael, you and a bunch of us, brother. All us old dudes, we can't march as long or move as fast. By golly, we can get her done. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. I mean, like covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, y'all. I'm talking about Alabama. This show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. All right. Hey, I listened to a couple texts, and I got to go to the phones, too. Real quick, JT Lacey Springs said, saw today the word esoteric. Seems to define the left and anything Biden. Okay. No, esoteric, it's historic. Oh, now I got to look that up. Okay. Thank you, JT. Appreciate you. Roughly Ann from Huntsville says, breaking, North Carolina protesters shot. I need to find out about that. It's not on the news. Roughly Ann, if you have a story linking to that, let me know. Gary from Decatur, are you talking about that time-honored, prestigious learning institute administered by plagiarists and CCP donors? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. There's that. Let me go to the phones real quick. Bobby from Moulton's on the line. Bobby, how you doing?
Doing good, man. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Man, I'd love to, I don't know if you got any liberal friends at all, but I would love to hear a kind of a point-by-point on your monologue of how they would disagree with any of that.
Wow.
Because I just don't understand.
No, brother, I don't understand it either, and I don't get it. I mean, it's to the point that I can't relate to people that would not agree with that, but I know they're out there, and I get that you can dislike something, but the very idea that you dislike everything is to me is
right.
just antithetical to common sense.
Right.
Well, Bobby, I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for the encouragement. Stay in the fight, all right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wow, great call. Jeremy from Huntsville, last text before I go to the Dipper, says, from the movie Big Trouble in Little China, Wang Chi says, here's to the Army and the Navy and the battles they've won. Here's to America's colors, the colors that never run. And then Jack Burton said, may the wings of liberty never lose a feather. I like it. I like it lots. All right, let me reach back here and grab some notes. Because I actually do have a whole dipper full of stuff that I just threw on the floor. Good Lord. Big rig. I'm over here having me a moment trying to gather up my notes. All right. Whew. All right, give me a sound effect ready, brother. So here's the deal. You know the thing, man. Every once in a while, we got to look around and see what's happening in our own backyard, right? What is happening in and around and amongst us? What is happening right here at home? And once we find it, we put on like the whole buffet, the cornucopia of stuff that comes in and around Alabama. We call it home fries. Yeah, cook them up. Cook them up. All right, so here's the deal. There's a lot of things happening in the news right now, not the least of which is the fact that our state legislature, like many legislatures, Alabama is a part-time legislature. And they come into session once a year, unless the governor calls them into a special session, which I've always thought is a bit weird because that almost seems like a blurring of the lines between branches. But anyway, if the governor calls them into a special session, they come in. Otherwise, they only meet once a year, and they call that the regular session. The regular session is almost over. They can only meet for 30 days in I think it's a 105-day calendar period. So within 105 calendar days, they convene on the floor of the House and Senate to pass the laws for 30 of those days. Now, they also do other days for committee assignments and things like that, but the 30 legislative days in the chamber where they call the roll and start taking the votes, that's limited. Well, it's almost over. And I like to say the state will soon be safer because the legislature will be out of session. But nonetheless, there's things they're trying to get done. Here's a headline for you from 1819. Guns, sex ed, and the state health officer reform on proposed House calendar. That's quite the calendar. They're running the whole gamut here. It says the Alabama legislature will gavel in on Tuesday for the 26th legislative day out of a possible 30 allowed under the state constitution. An attempt to pass priority bills before time runs out. The House is planning on tackling 2 calendars. Now, when the calendars is basically what happens when the bill goes through the legislative process and it's referred to the Rules Committee. That's the final step before it comes out on the floor. The Rules Committee then actually puts together what they call a legislative calendar. And when the legislative calendar is published, It can be published by the day. It can be published an hour in. It can, it's a bit of a fluid movement. But once it's set and the calendar is voted on, like they vote to approve the calendar for the day, then they start taking them one at a time. Well, things that are on there, there's 19 bills right now on a proposed special order calendar. Here's a couple of them you might want to know about. House Bill 195. So Susan DuBose has become a rock star for what I would call the cultural issues, especially. I mean, she's not restricted to that by any stretch, but she's become quite the go-to person for things like, the What is a Woman bill and keeping men out of women's sports. And she's got one right now that deals with our state's sex education curriculum. And you look at it and think, this shouldn't be a thing, but it is. She's got a bill that would require that if you're going to teach sex education, that part of what you have to teach is also the idea of, I don't know, how about this? Abstinence and sexual risk avoidance. Like, the fact that you increase your potential for sexually transmitted diseases and pregnancy if you have extramarital sex. Sounds like common sense, but they don't teach it because that's been taboo. Why? Think about this. Why? Why is that taboo? Well, I mean, aren't you getting into morals? What's your point? I mean, if you're telling somebody, hey, think twice before you have sex out of marriage, I mean, aren't you kind of getting in their business? You're teaching sex education. Well, you want to teach them how to have sex, but not teach them, what the results could be. You don't want to teach consequences for actions. Come on. Anyway, that bill is House Bill 195, and we're watching to see whether it's going to get final passage. It's got very little time to move through the process now. I'm not sure it's going to have time to keep moving, but if it can get out on the floor on Tuesday and get a vote, it still has just enough time to make it through the Senate process, and we'll have to wait and see. Here's another one. Here's one I've been advocating for several years. This is big doings. There have been various, iterations of this bill, but we have one right now that does appear to be poised to make final passage. Remember back during COVID? Yeah, we do. Everybody remembers back during COVID. Remember back during COVID, we had a guy called the state health officer. So Scott Harris is our state health officer. I was shocked while working at the Alabama Policy Institute, we had one of our analysts do some research for us. How does a state health officer get their job? Surely it's like appointed by the governor, right? Confirmed by the Senate. And then I got to thinking, I don't recall that during my 8-year tenure in the Senate because we confirmed all kinds of people. Did that happen? And then it comes out the research says, no, the governor has no say in who her state health officer is. That's appointed by the Medical Association of Alabama. That's appointed by an organization that has lobbyists. That's appointed by basically a group of doctors who just care about their profession, not necessarily about the state or the state's well-being. Now, I don't want to overplay like they're all callous and indifferent, but there's no other organization out there that I know of who is allowed to appoint from within for something that then impacts all of us. And yet the state health officer was the one setting all the policy during COVID. It was the state health officer that was making the proclamations that were shutting down businesses and advising the governor that, vaccines were necessary and all these things. Well, Senate Bill 128 by State Senator Tim Melson is just about through the process. We have a chance of changing this finally, and we need to, because we do not need, like right now, the state health officer, Scott Harris, he could say, shut down all the churches and schools. And you can't impeach him. You can't fire him. You can't hold him accountable. You can't do anything. You can't truly move on the position pretty much at all. And yet he's the state health officer. Down in Florida, Ron DeSantis, he's allowed to pick a cabinet level position, kind of like having a surgeon general for the state. Not in Alabama. The doctors pick who's going to be in charge of the doctoring. That may change. State Health Officer Tim Melson's got the bill. It would make it a gubernatorial appointment. It would make it a cabinet level position. It would also make it something that is, I believe, confirmed by the Senate, or at least gets picked from a slate of candidates put forward by a appointed committee. Good things. Now, here's one for you. All you gun guys out there and gun ladies, I know you're out there, both of you, all of you. There's a thing happening around the nation, and this bugs the crap out of me. I mean, they will find a backdoor way into your Second Amendment whenever they get a chance. And one of them is a thing called merchant category codes. So if Big Rig and I went to the store and bought something with a credit card, it's going to have a little code in it, and the credit card company can tell we bought things from a grocery, or we bought things from a sporting goods, or we bought things from a paint and hardware, whatever. It's categorized, merchant category codes. Activists have convinced the administration they need to have one single code just for guns. Why would that be? So they can track whether you purchase guns. Right now, firearms are considered part of the broad sporting goods. If you do it, your credit card just shows sporting good purchase. It doesn't show what you purchased. Not anymore. If they get this thing done, they're going to be able to track whether or not you did or did not purchase a firearm. Why would they need to do that? What would the point be? Well, so they can track whether you bought a firearm. And they can start going into their red flag laws. And they can go out and collect. Anyway, we have a bill right now, House Bill 389 by Representative Shane Stringer out of Centronel, who it would ban the ability of credit card companies to use these MCCs for gathering guns and ammunition information in Alabama. All right, all that's happening right now in your Alabama legislature, that and more. And I got some other stuff that'll come up. But I also got to tell you, since we're doing home fries, how about the mullet toss? Oh, it got fun. I will tell you about that in a minute. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, heading to a break. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Wow, making common sense like a superpower. Hey, okay. While I'm doing home fries, the mullet toss. So, Big Rig, you never heard of the mullet toss?
I mean, I've heard of it.
I've never participated in it.
Just never seen it, yeah.
Okay, you're actually throwing a dead fish.
Okay.
Who thought this up? I don't know.
So is there like a target or like a bucket or something?
I think it's mostly a distance thing.
Okay, distance.
Yeah, like, how far can you have to reach into the bucket, grab a dead mullet fish. And, mullet are prolific down on the coast.
Yeah.
But it's a little scrappy fish. It's like the crappie of North Alabama. But the mullet gets tossed. So they do this down at the Floribama, and it's a landmark place, the Floribama, right there on the border, and it's been around. I don't know how many years they've been doing this thing, but the mullet toss. Some of y'all out there have probably been to the mullet toss. It's big doings, right? Take your weekend. Let's take the kids down and do the mullet toss. I'm pretty sure that it probably started with somebody who said, "Oh, watch this, hold my beer." That's probably where it started.
Probably. I kind of want to go do it now.
I know. I mean,
does it cost money to do it?
Can we start like a catfish toss here in North Alabama or something?
That sounds fun. Tossing like 50-pound catfish.
Just saying. Although I will say this, there's one thing in the world I have no desire to ever do, like ever in like all of ever, is noodling.
I don't want to do that.
I've done a lot of things in my day. Been a lot of scary places. Been a lot of high risk taking. Something about sticking my hand up under a log or a bank and seeing if something will bite it so that I can grab it by the lip and bring it out does not sound like fun to me.
Too many unknowns.
Brother.
Could be a snake.
The list of unknowns runs rampant in my head. But anyway, back to the mullet toss. So the mullet toss, PETA took issue this year. And people for the ethical treatment of animals decided that they need to say something about this. They were concerned because, it's just like, I don't know, mistreatment of a corpse. I don't know what this is. I mean, fish have feelings too, sort of. I don't know. But anyway, PETA took issue. So Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe and several other members of the Alabama football team, to include Coach Kalen DeBoer, decided they go down and throw some mullet. They're like, forget PETA, let's go do some mullet tossing. So yeah, they've been doing this since the 80s apparently. A story here on AL.com. It's dubbed the Gulf Coast's greatest beach party. Happens on the coastline that straddles the Florida-Alabama state line. Contestants pay $20 each to toss a fish from a 10-foot circle in Florida across a state line into Alabama. Now, why they got to throw the dead fish at Alabama, I don't know. How come we get the dead fish? Why don't we throw the dead? Surely to goodness there's a circle you throw it back. But then it's probably sandy at that point.
Yeah.
Like, okay, anyway. It attracts up to 25,000 people, raises more than $100,000 for local charities and animal rights groups. PETA had a suggestion for how future mullet tosses might go, and it wasn't even worth considering. But yeah, members of the Alabama football team, to include the coach and the basketball coach, Nate Oates, decided to go down there and sling some dead fish for charity.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear it's for charity.
Take that, PETA.
You're just paying $20 to go throw a fish.
Well, I mean, no, there's got to be a little something to it.
I don't know anything about the mullet toss.
But. There you have it, the mullet toss. So, yeah, those of y'all that were wondering whether or not PETA shut it down, nope. Not only did they not shut it down, but by golly, they got some special VIP fish tossers at the mullet toss. Back to serious business. Yellowhammer News has got a piece. So you've heard a lot about the unionization of our plants, or attempted unionization of our plants. We're coming up 2 weeks from now. The Mercedes plant over near Tuscaloosa is going to have, in Vance, is going to have a vote on whether or not to unionize. Now, the UAW was just successful in unionizing the Volkswagen plant in Chattanooga. Got a lot of people's attention. I mean, that happened like 2 weeks ago. So State Senator Arthur Orr He came on Dale Jackson's show, story here on Yellowhammer. He says he's worried about the future of automobile manufacturing in Alabama because of the UAW's efforts. Says the National Labor Relations Board did announce that between May 13th and 17th, there will be a vote to whether or not to unionize. He says he's concerned about the future. He says he's heard that future growth in Alabama could come to a screeching halt as far as some of our other automakers see this. And that's certainly concerning, he says, because there's other states that would certainly love to have what we have in Alabama and what we've been working to have since Mercedes first came in the 90s. He admits there's only so much you can do at the government level. It's really up to the members of the base there of the worker base as to whether they want to do it or not. You know, and he says, look, it's not a foregone conclusion. He said he doesn't think the Mercedes vote is a foregone conclusion, but we should not underestimate it, in my opinion. It's me talking now. We should not underestimate it whatsoever, because they are feeling empowered right now by an administration out of D.C. that is like everything union. So just saying. Tell you what, let me grab a couple of text messages and we're going to hit the top of the hour. Coming up here momentarily, we'll have Becky Gerritsen, Executive Director of the Eagle Forum of Alabama. Don from Cairo texted in. He says, Senator Melson's also a medical doctor. Rangers lead the way. Yes, he is. I know Tim Melson. He is a medical doctor. Which I think brings credibility to the fact that he's the one bringing the bill. And then Ron from Tuscumbia says, some good eating, smoked mullet. There you have it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got all the issues. I'm talking about covering down local, state, and national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, listen, there's, in case you didn't know, you should have already figured it out on this show, we like to bring in the groups who are in the fight with us, right? You hear all the time about the various groups that are out there that are really doing great things. And one of those that I'm pretty fond of is the Eagle Forum. And the Eagle Forum of Alabama, Uni Smith's been there for many years, and her executive director is my friend Becky Garrettson, who is a culture warrior herself. And Becky Garrettson is on the line right now to give us some updates on where we stand in the final days of the legislative process. Becky Garrettson, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on and for reviewing some of the bills. I was listening before I came on, and it is a busy time, and we are running out of time to get some of these good bills passed and then to try to kill the bad ones that are coming down the pike. Yeah,
on some of these, you kind of hope the time would tick along quicker, but then, like you said, there's other things you still want to get done. So I got to ask you, though, Beck, about the elephant in the room is the gambling bill. And that thing is currently sitting in conference. House and Senate don't agree, at least as far as we know thus far. What are you hearing on that thing?
Yes. Well, that is so funny that you asked that question, because everyone I see asks me that question. We're down there every day, and we all look at each other. All of us, there's many forces that are, trying to fight the gambling bill or the bills, one in conference committee, and it's very tight-lipped. We hear rumors that, on Tuesday, everything was great, and there was supposed to be this big hearing that was going to happen the next day, and then the next day there's fighting, and the meeting's been called off, and so we're all just completely in the dark. And I hope that the clock runs out, but, Phil, as it goes, they may bring this up tomorrow. Who knows? There may be a bill to vote on as early as tomorrow. So we're just, doing everything we can to tell people to vote no, ask their legislators to vote no, and we just have no idea. Crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, usually you can get a kind of a sense of the room, read the tea leaves, so to speak.
Yes.
And this one seems to be, granted, it's eluding final passage to this point. Think about it. This is the very first bill the House passed. They came out the gate and were like, nothing more important, and passed this gambling package. And then it went upstairs and stalled. And now we're literally days away from seeing it, wither on the vine, but we need the clock to tick on that one.
We do. We definitely do. And it's been very unfortunate that leadership in both houses have been frustrated at each other and have held up each other's bills. And which, when you've got something you want passed, you're not happy about that. So we'll see how everyone, I think there'll be a lot of Band-Aids and ace bandages and stuff at the end of this session, because it's just not been a real agreeable time right now.
All right. Well, listen, there's several other bills. I mentioned one of them earlier. Representative Arnold Mooney has got a bill, House Bill 385. It's the top on your list. Y'all are supporting it. Top on your list you mailed out, I'm sorry. And this one just literally deals with, basically trying to prevent obscenities in front of children. And it's like, oh, we're going to have librarians arrested, and it's all goodness. And talk to us about this bill. Where are we?
Right. Okay, so this is a bill that just takes the current Alabama obscenity law and adds a new section called harmful to minors material, which is legally a term, but it is. So anyway, if there are obscene books or obscene material in a children's section in the library, which we have seen across the state, that is not allowed to be there. That is against the law. But harmful to minors is more of a community standards kind of thing. So the DA would be the one to decide if something is not appropriate for a child and would pass, that test. So if for some reason a librarian does not know if this is dangerous for a child or, if it's inappropriate for a child, they can always get they can ask the DA to weigh in on that. So, but there's just this real fear tactic that all these librarians are going to be fired because they're putting books in the children's section. Yeah. Well, really, this is just common sense. You know what children should be exposed to and what they shouldn't be exposed to. And if you have a question, you can ask the DA.
Well, not only that, but my understanding of the bill, too, is there's no penalty if the librarian, within 7 days of receiving notice about a book that needs to be removed, if they remove the book, it's like, oh, sorry, didn't know that was on the shelf over there. We've got it. We'll take care of it. You've got 7 days to walk to the kids section and take it off the shelf and put it somewhere else. But AL.com and some of the usual sensationalists are out there talking about how we're going to, the jackboots are coming to arrest all the librarians.
Right. Well, it's crazy. Well, on that same line of obscenity, we have two other bills that we're really wanting to get passed this year, and one is the Children's Device Protection Bill, and you're familiar with this. This is the cell phone porn bill.
Yes.
Which is so easy. It's been several years we've tried to get this passed, but every cell phone and tablet has an explicit filter that it already comes on the tablet. It's already there. The manufacturer already makes it, but it is always turned off. It's very hard to find, and then there are oftentimes so many dozens of steps to actually turn it on. So this bill just asks the manufacturer to turn it to on, so that whenever a cell phone is activated in the state of Alabama, cell phone or tablet, is activated in the state of Alabama for a minor, it just toggles to on. It's a simple software update. The retailer doesn't have to go in and do anything. I mean, it's just so easy. But a great protection against children who are accidentally being exposed to explicit pornography. So there's just a real fight over this. The big tech does not like this. They make a ton of money off of pornography. They want to peddle it to our children. They don't want to make it easy to turn it off. And so that's where we're getting the pushback. And it has passed the House unanimously. For many years, for 3 years. I think this is the fourth year we're trying to get this passed, and it keeps stalling in the Senate. So we are just praying that this bill, it's in committee, and they'll hopefully give it a favorable report on Wednesday, and we would have enough time for it to get to the floor.
Yeah, this is one of those. We've had Malia Stevens, who I know you know, has been on the show twice. She was on last week, and I said to her then, this is one of the most low-hanging fruit, common sense, no-brainer bills I think I've ever seen. And yet what really bugs me is the BCA and the Department of Commerce. I mean, it's like basically our state is fighting this bill. What in the world?
Right. And they don't even understand. When you hear them
did we lose her?
Sound like we're asking. They make it sound like we're asking for some awful thing you hear at their testimonies, and they just don't even understand the bill. This is such a simple, easy software update. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it is.
So there's that one. And then the other one is Susan DuBose has a bill that would require, would sort of put a clamp down on comprehensive sex ed, which is the very graphic sex ed. It's more the teacher child how to have sex sort of thing. If you look in that weekly update that I sent you, you can see what comprehensive sex ed is all about. And it's so graphic and so horrible. So, and this is not abstinence only. The opposition is trying to make it out that this bill is abstinence only, but they do talk about contraceptives. It is scientifically based. This is going to be a big fight, and I think it will be on the floor this week. So, again, we're just trying to protect these young children from grooming tactics. With sexual grooming everywhere, whether it's the library, whether it's in your school, I mean, it's everywhere, and these kids need help. Yeah,
they do. And I tell you what, the thing I have to ask, not of you per se, but the people that want to do, like the folks that want to put these books in the kids section, the folks that want to have graphic sexual education, which is really not education, it's more like you said, like grooming style stuff in schools. You have to. People don't ask the question enough of them. Why do you want it in the kids section? Why is that important to you to have it in the kids section? And I think that most of them, if they were asked that in a public setting, they wouldn't know how to answer. They just do. They just want it there. It's like the Read Freely Alabama people that just want that stuff in the kids section of the libraries, and yet that should be a problem in itself. Not that the books are there, that you want them there is a problem.
Yes.
Hey, let me ask you, with about a minute to go before we go to the break, there's also a bill on here that I really had not been tracking, but you guys have got it on your list of bills that moved. And I'm wondering where you are on. Well, actually, you support the bill. I know it's House Bill 165 by Representative Brown, but it requires parental permission for vaccines. I had not even seen this bill. What is that one about? With about a minute here.
Yes. So if a child was at school and they wanted to give them a shot, they would not be able to under this bill. You have to. I believe it's up to age 18, unless you're emancipated. You're an adult, but you have to have your parents give written consent for you to be able to receive a vaccine. And we do like this bill a lot, but we're running out of time. It's got to be in committee this week. It's already passed the House, so now it's just moving through the Senate, and I think the Senate is holding up House bills right now because of the gambling stuff.
Yeah, it's I've seen tiffs between the House and the Senate before. I don't think I've ever seen one that involved a press conference. It's just. I look at it now. When the Speaker of the House goes out and does a press conference and calls upon the leadership of the Senate to pass a bill, I'm like, what is going on in Montgomery right now? Aren't they all Republicans, supposedly?
Not acting like it.
All right, my friend, listen, you guys have got your finger on the pulse. And I tell you what, if you hear, and listen, you can call me at a moment's notice. If you hear anything about gambling moving or whatever else, or some of the other major bills you and I have just discussed, shoot me a text or maybe even call in one day on the show and just update us as we go, okay?
Perfect. Would love to. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Hey, Becky, and tell them where they can find out more about Eagle Forum if they want to.
Yes, definitely. AlabamaEagle.org, and you can find our weekly updates. I'm getting ready to put week 10 on there, which is the one that you have in your hand. And right now it's only week 9, but you can see all the weekly updates on our homepage. Just scroll down and you'll find them.
All right. Good enough. Thank you, Becky Garrettson. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, listen, we're going to take a break right now. But Eagle Forum is one of those groups like API and ALCAP and a few others that are Alabama-based and doing amazing things to fight within the legislative processes for what I would call good conservative public policy. If you ever want to get on board one of those organizations, I highly encourage it because that's one way to get in the fight where there's already somebody there who helps carry a banner. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Like saving the world one soundbite at a time. Keith from Parts Unknown says, okay, you started something. Find a place to start the North Alabama catfish toss.
I'm saying. That's a good idea.
Oh, my gosh. I don't know. I just, man. Do we have to noodle them first? I mean,
No.
if you have to sling what you pulled out, like, stuck to your hand, like your fist is somewhere down inside his throat, I'm not for it.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Okay. All right, we'll see.
That might be pro level catfish tossing.
Keith from Parts Unknown, we'll get back to you. Cameron from Decatur says, when I was working for the Montgomery Advertiser many years ago, Dave Martin with the Associated Press had an annual mullet toss at his house. He passed away a few years ago and is sorely missed. Wow. He just brought a bucket of dead fish to his house and did what? Throw them at the neighbor's yard? What do you do with that? Goodness. I knew a guy, by the way, who, this is like a total, I'm chasing a rabbit now. A guy, by the way, who was tired of someone who kept dumping trash in his yard, like literally driving by and throwing stuff out. So he found out where the guy lived, and he went and bought about 20 pounds of shrimp. And they apparently went and scattered it throughout the guy's yard in the heat of summer. And, shrimp kind of hides down in the grass. You knew it was there about 24 hours later.
That's crazy.
That's that's pretty messed up. So anyway, all I'm saying is a mullet toss in the backyard does not sound like a way to endear yourself to the neighbors.
No.
Roughly Ann from Huntsville said, sent me a link to that story. Okay, North Carolina. She goes, I was under the impression it was at the college. Not sure the whole story. Sorry. I will check it out. Thank you. There's nothing on the news. We got the screens going in here, and I keep a tab on the news too, just so you know. Roughly Ann, but I'm not seeing anything about, well, now that I've said that, numerous police officers shot in an active North Carolina SWAT situation, but it does not say that they were related to a pro-Palestinian protest. It does look like we have the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department reporting numerous officers were shot at the scene. Shooting began when the U.S. Marshals Task Force attempted to serve a warrant. Okay, there you go. Wow. All right, God bless them. Active shooter scene, looks like a big deal, at a residential home. Okay. Anyway, that's what that is, roughly, in. Marie from Madison, same thing about the North Carolina thing, may not be what she was talking about. I thought she mentioned a protester. I think it was just like a sort of like getting storylines across is all it was. Teresa from Town Creek also sent the same link in. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you keeping me posted. All right, so listen, we're finishing up this section. In a minute, we're going to have our friend Hannah Stevens coming on, and I love it when Hannah comes on because she just brings this breath of fresh air with her. But I will say this: the stuff we've got in the home fries segment. There's one story that it kind of bleeds over into sports. I don't know that I'll ask Hannah about it. She's welcome to talk about it if she wants to. There's a story on Yellowhammer. I have not heard of this. The International Football Alliance. Have you heard about this? Okay, American football. It's not like soccer by another name. It's American football that has teams in both Mexico and the United States. I have not heard of this. But they're talking about bringing a team to Huntsville and calling it the Alabama Beavers. Why it's the Beavers, I don't know. Beavers and trash pandas, apparently we like little rodent-style, mascots. But they're saying the league kicks off in 2025. Reportedly, we'll have teams in Las Vegas, Tampa Bay, Dallas, Chihuahua, Cancun, Guadalajara, and Portland. And the IFA describes its mission as bridging the gap in international professional football by delivering the highest level of American football within Mexico and the U.S. I don't know, man. I don't know.
What do you not know about it?
I don't know. It just I don't know.
Doesn't sound right.
I mean,
maybe Hannah has a comment on it.
So do the cartels sponsor a team down there in Guadalajara?
I don't know.
How's that work? Yeah, like do they have like armed practices? Mm-hmm. They practice drills running across the U.S. border. I don't know. I'm sorry. Did I go there? Apparently, I just did. So the International Football Alliance may have teams in Mexico and the United States, and of the projected 6 new teams, One of them proposed to be the Alabama Beavers in Huntsville. I don't know. Jury's out, man. We'll wait and see. Coming up next, Right Sports. Hannah Stevens. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here. Y'all, I'm talking about Alabama. Man, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. All right, well, listen, we're going to switch gears right now. We're done with home fries. We're moving on to a segment I've just become to really enjoy called Right Sports. So some of y'all already know our friend Hannah Stevens. She used to be known sometimes as the UA sign girl. She made a name for herself by appearing at UA Sports and holding up signs that caught everybody's attention. She got the attention of people like Feinbaum and others. Next thing you know, she's got her own gig with ESPN. And I'm just thankful to have her come on once in a while and give us a dose of right sports. So, UA sign girl Hannah Stevens, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Phil. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm gooder now that you're on the air with us. Well, let me ask you a question. So this past week we had the NFL draft, and the SEC dominated, but tell me what you saw and break it down for us. What should we know, and who were the surprises in that?
Sure. So I'll start with this. I'm going to go from a different perspective to start. I want to say that Nick Saban did a fantastic job in his debut on College Game Day. I will say that I don't know a single person who thought he did poorly, and that just shows how great of an analyst he is, but how knowledgeable he is in the game of football. And that's probably one reason why Alabama had such a dynasty with him, was because he is a smart man. And every single draft pick, he has something to analyze. He had something to share about that player, their perspective or their mindset. It was very intriguing and very, I think, entertaining. So on that end, it was awesome.
Hey, I got to ask you though, is it true? Did he eat an oatmeal cream pie on the air?
That I did not catch. He could have. I was so busy on social media, and I was busy on a couple of phone calls during the draft. Just people getting my perspective on who was going to go where. But no, he he surprised a lot of people, and it would not surprise me if he did that. He has really shown a different personality than he showed while being a coach, and a lot of people are really starting to enjoy this Nick Saban that's no longer in a shell.
How about that? All right, good enough. Okay, so what happened during the draft?
Sure. So I'll say this. It was very exciting for me to see these guys who, maybe it's because I'm a female, but regardless of the school, it's emotional. I think it's emotional with every single draft pick, because these guys, this is what they've dreamed of their entire life. And to see these dreams come true for these young men, it was just one of the most, I think, inspiring and encouraging things. And so I loved it. I'll say probably one of the most surprising picks. I think maybe a Caleb Williams, the first pick of the draft, right? Because, he's kind of iffy character, so to speak. You don't really know what you're getting. He's a great player, but he does have a lot of controversy surrounding him. So that was going to be a pick people watched to see if he really was going to be the first quarterback drafted. And then you have to give UNC's quarterback a round of applause. Being as high up as he was, third-round pick overall, and just kind of showcase that you don't really have to go to an Alabama or a USC or a Michigan to make your name known. But other than that, I think the rest of them fell into place. I'm excited for even Terrion Arnold. He is basically like Nick Saban's son, and so to watch him surprise, and Jalen Milroe was there, obviously. But overall, it was a great first round, and I think a great overall NFL draft, and I was very excited just to see Nick Saban doing his thing, but also getting to see these dreams come true for so many players all over the country. It is cool.
You're watching it, and then they get to pull up the jersey, and their family sitting there with them, and all that. It's pretty fun. Let me ask you. So Jalen Key, I got one article here that called him Mr. Irrelevant. Tell me about this.
Yeah. For me, Mr. Irrelevant, I think, if you're not really in the realm of sports, you're probably like, well, that's a little offensive, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The reason is this. You're the last pick of the NFL draft, right? So you're kind of like, oh, well, it's just the last pick. Well, people forget that Brock Purdy was the Mr. Irrelevant, and he led his team to a Super Bowl last year. Unfortunately, did not beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but still an incredible performance. He's a great guy. He's a believer. He is just a tremendous example of what you want in an athlete, right? What you want in a young man. And, I think Jalen Key is probably the perfect epitome of a Mr. Irrelevant. Because he embodies that persona of, well, you think I'm Mr. Irrelevant, I'm going to show you, kind of like Brock Purdy. So, it's got a historical realm to it. A lot of these players, some of them don't. Some of them you won't hear from them again. But a lot of the more recent years, you've had Mr. Irrelevant. They've gone on to not only make a name for themselves, but, put their teams back on the map in ways that they were struggling beforehand.
I remember, and I mentioned this to you off the air. I mean, back in the day, Brett Favre came out of Southern Miss, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't think he was very high on the draft. Like, he was one of those who he came in to be somebody else's understudy, basically, and then next thing you know, he's like the guy who never retires. I mean, he's the Brett Favre who played well past the usual playing time and was a Super Bowl champion and just hard as nails. So yeah, some of them don't get picked first round, but they wind up being the guys later on.
And I'll say this about Jalen Key. He came to Alabama from UAB. So it just kind of shows what the epitome of the transfer portal can be. Because I've said this on many podcasts, many shows. I'm not opposed to the NIL. I'm not opposed to the transfer portal. I'm opposed to how the NCAA has done a poor job setting regulations and rules and boundaries for these players. Because what happens is you have what's going on now, and then you have the NCAA upset with how much money's being paid or this or that or whatever. But it's kind of like this. It's kind of like having parents of a child who don't give the child any rules, and so the child pushes those boundaries and says, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I want, and then the parents get upset when the child does something they didn't want them to do without giving them the rules beforehand. So that's kind of what we're seeing. But my point is the transfer portal in and of itself is not bad. It's actually a really good opportunity for these players. I don't agree with an NCAA that just recently ruled that you can transfer an infinite amount of time and, you can start immediately, because it kind of takes the beauty out of the game of football. Because for years, the thing that the NCAA had for it, with football was that, unlike basketball, you had to stay at least 3 years. You had to stay until your junior year. And now you have this ability for players, it's all about money or opportunity to start. And so for me, I just, I think it's going to be an awesome opportunity for players like Jalen Key, who otherwise wouldn't have had this opportunity.
Well, I know we had too, by the way, we had some, the SEC dominated once again overall in the NFL draft. We did have, I think Justin Rogers was like one of the last guys in the overall draft. He came out of Auburn. He was a defensive lineman. Yep. And he went to the Cowboys, I think. But so Auburn was there, but the top SEC teams were what? Alabama, Georgia, was it LSU was number 3? Number 3? Yeah.
And I think it's just so amazing because the SEC was never on top like this. It used to always be the Pac-10, now it's the Pac-12. And that used to be the conference, the Cal, the USC, the Washington, the Stanford, these programs that, let's just be honest, when Pete Carroll was at USC, that was the dynasty, right? Like in, the early 2000s, that was the program you wanted to play for. That was the program that was winning championships and sending the pipeline in the NFL. And here you have Nick Saban. Nick Saban has the record for the most, not only overall draft picks, but first-round picks from a coach in this modern era. And it just showcases how much, these players go to Alabama to make it in the NFL. So for me to see that the ACC is leading the way is just so encouraging, and I love it because, it's not just in football. It's in baseball. It's in basketball, and now it's in softball. If we're getting to be into the soon-to-be SEC tournament and then the Women's College World Series, and, it used to be that it was all Pac-12 or maybe even Big 12, obviously with Oklahoma. But now you have the SEC competing for all these championships, and I'm here for it. SEC, it just means more, right?
So do we need like a new professional football league just for SEC graduates?
Yeah, I always said that if Alabama wanted to ever start their own little like G League of NFL, right, then we would just have all these players. Just think about it. Phil, think about all the players from Alabama and Auburn. Let's just keep it in state. Let's say we had the Birmingham Legends, I don't know, right? And you had them play in Birmingham like you did, like the Cleveland Browns or the Atlanta Falcons. and you just had talent from Alabama and Auburn, you wouldn't need to recruit anywhere else. You would get players. If players knew they could stay in Birmingham and play in the NFL and make money, they would do it in a heartbeat. And just think of the teams you'd have.
We may be onto something.
Henry Ruggs.
This could be a thing.
I mean, you would have Tua. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe someone's listening right now and just consider my idea. I just need some royalty off that.
And Bo Nix never would have transferred? Maybe not. But anyways, nonetheless.
No, I'll say he's another example. And, this is a conversation for another day on why he really did leave and why I don't agree with him leaving. But I will say he did the right thing for his personal career, getting a shot in NFL, because I said this on Twitter and I'll say it again. If Bo Nix would not have left, he would not have been a first-round pick. If he stayed at Auburn his entire career, we're looking at maybe a second, third, fourth, probably like a Stetson Bennett type thing.
So who picked him up in the draft?
Oh, goodness. Why am I blanking all of a sudden?
I saw it, but I can't remember who it was.
Not Jacksonville. My brain. J.J. McCarthy went to the Vikings. Bo Nix, was it the Bears?
It may have been.
I don't
recall.
So I'm just having to use my brain for a second. But, the Bears. But, that's a good stepping stone for him. That's a good place for him to go. So I'm excited. And, when players utilize the draft in an honorable way, not every single year, not because of, they're not getting playing time, but for them to really get their name out there, like, even Jalen Hurts, I'm all for it. So I'm very excited for Bo Nix, and congratulations to him and his family.
So I got to ask you before I go to the break here, one quick question, slightly off topic, but since you and I just came up with the brand new Alabama Professional Football League, did you see there's a story that I just talked about right before you came on the air that there's a new, they're calling themselves the International Football Alliance, American football with teams based in both Mexico and the U.S., one of which is scheduled to be in Huntsville. Have you heard about this?
I have not.
Well, if you've not heard of it, then nobody's heard of it.
Well, maybe not. I'll just say this. I have been in my own little world here with basically my three sports have been obviously the spring game and all that, 8A and all that, but also softball and baseball has been top of my priority list right now, trying to get all these games and watch them because we're soon to have the SC tournament for both baseball and softball. So, that's kind of been piquing my interest right now. But no, that sounds incredible. I'll have to check that out during the break.
I'll send you a link to it.
Okay.
All right. Hey, listen, we got to take a break right now, but I want you to hold on during the break because I want to switch gears. You put up an amazing social media post about the memories and the after effects of the 2011 tornadoes. So I want to just talk to you about that for a minute too, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, y'all stay tuned. We're going to take a break right now with our friend Hannah Stevens doing a little bit of right sports. But, we're going to take a sidestep here and talk about what it meant to be around during the 2011 tornadoes and what she saw personally. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like making common sense like a superpower. Going back to the phones right now with our friend Hannah Stevens. Hey, Hannah, real quick clarifications. You and I both quickly went to the computers and we found out it was Bo Nix going to the Denver Broncos.
Yep. Yep. BB, Broncos, Bears. I knew what I was saying. But my brain and my mouth were on two different wavelengths.
And hey, by the way, I sent you that article on the potential for an international football team coming to Huntsville. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. I'm dubious, but we'll see.
Yeah, Huntsville's kind of become the new, I guess, the grounds for this stuff. I mean, we got the Trash Pandas, and then we have that soccer team now here in Huntsville. So, I mean, Huntsville's kind of the up-and-coming city, I guess, for stuff like this. But I'm excited for it. I mean, if it means more football games for me to watch, I'll be there because I love me some football.
Well, listen, friend, I got to switch gears on you. So this past weekend was the, I think, 13th anniversary of the April 2011 tornadoes. And I mean, you know, it's kind of weird. Like I look back on it. I think my house was the only house in Etowah County that had a tree down on top of it, and it just wound up that way. That's nothing compared to what other people suffered. But it was kind of weird. I was in the state senate at the time. I was actually in Montgomery in the state house, and I saw the video of what it was doing coming through Tuscaloosa. As those long track tornadoes came across, they were barreling straight towards my home actually, and then they split. They split in half. And the weird thing was, they basically ran on both sides of my Senate district, and we wound up being the only place in Northeast Alabama you could get gas for the next 2 weeks because the power stayed on and all that. But not so much in Tuscaloosa. So you wrote a piece on your social media that just really blessed me, talking about the resilience of the town, the people, even the athletes who turned out, and what Coach Saban said to the players. Just give us we got about 4 or 5 minutes here. Just give us a little bit of your memory on this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that was my freshman year, right? I mean, that was about to be finals week, and I remember watching James Spinn. I was in our dorm, and the Lord blessed me with a good RA because I was actually headed to 15th Street because church had been canceled, but I was a rower, so our one of our assistants was having a baby shower that night on 15th Street, so I was about to head there. He's like, "You're not leaving," and so anyway, I ended up staying at the dorm, and it was coming right towards campus, and it actually turned. If you look at the map, it takes us right onto 15th Street. And if it would have hit campus, we'd have been dealing with a much more insane situation. But I'll say this: as devastating as that tornado was, and I had a friend, Lauren Brown, passed away in that tornado. As horrible as that tornado was, getting to see how the Lord can use devastation in a positive light was probably the most. I mean, I've never experienced anything like it. I mean, the first people I came into contact with on campus were actually Auburn fans. Some people from Auburn, Alabama, drove up to Tuscaloosa just to help. That summer, I got to work with some students from the University of Tennessee that stayed and wanted to come here during their next spring break and help with recovery efforts and building new homes. But, as hard as it is to see some of the things we saw, I mean, we saw people in grave situations, trying to help find people out of the tornado. But you saw people come together in a way that, regardless of race, regardless of political status, regardless of anything, we were able to work hand in hand together with the common goal of rebuilding our community and helping others. And that is just that beautiful depiction of what I wish our country could be, right? That we can look past some things and just work together and be kind and courteous to one another. But, I mean, that tornado, it changed everyone's life in the state of Alabama. I know there was some in North Alabama up here. There was one in Coleman that morning. But, I think the Lord can use devastation for His glory and our good, even when we can't see it. And I think, to see how Saban got the football team to come together and help the community. But, Phil, I'll say this. Having the community being able to root for some teams that year was crucial. For us to have that, 2011, that fall, for us to win the national championship after, losing our city, right? And then in that, 2011, 2012 year, we had softball, we had gymnastics, we had wheelchair basketball. All these teams won national championships, and it was like we went from being a city that was devastated by a tornado to being the town of titles. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, it was just, it's something I can't really explain. It's just, it was probably the best part beyond the national championships were not only our people in our community working together, but for a slight moment, it didn't even matter who you rooted for. It didn't matter if you're an Auburn fan or an LSU fan or a Tennessee fan. People came down here, put that away, shelf that for just, that season of life, just to help other people, and that was a beautiful thing to watch.
It was indeed, and you're right up on it on social media. You can find her at the UA Sign Girl. I mean, listen, Hannah, thank you for sharing that. Amazing story. Thank you for your own personal testimony, and we'll talk to you again soon, all right?
Thank you. Have a good day, Phil.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. Wow. 13 years ago, last weekend. Big doings. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Coming up, hour number 3. We'll be right back.
Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on this beautiful Monday afternoon. It's a Monday, and yep, it's a Monday, and there are mass arrests going on at campuses around the nation. So I'm waiting to find out what's going to happen in Columbia University in New York City. The Ivy League can't quite get their act together. Now in Texas, by the way, they ain't playing. There's video all over the news right now. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. There's video all over the news down in UT Austin as these anti-Israel agitators are being dragged off. And it's like they're playing a giant game of Red Rover. You know, they're all locking arms and nobody wants to move. It's all scary. Don't you come over here. We have our rights. And they're just, they're taking over part of the campus and they're blocking people from going to classes. And they're also, by the way, calling for violence, some of them. And so, yeah, UT Austin, the state and the local have gotten together, and the men and women in blue are literally dragged. I watched one as they grabbed him by his feet, pulled him away from the people he had locked arms with, and then dragged him away by his feet. One of my favorite videos came out this past weekend. Emory University in Atlanta. Emory University, a Georgia State trooper was escorting someone away. The crazy thing was I could not tell if it was a man or woman, but nonetheless, escorting this person away who was saying, "You're hurting me, you're hurting me." Well, just walk then, dude or dudette or whatever you are. And then went into, now, do you remember, and by the way, I know Big Rig, your kids are still small, don't know if they've ever done this before. You know when the kids are like toddler age and you try to pick them up and they don't want to be picked up, and so they do the whole limp noodle thing? And then
every day. I know about it.
Yes, you do. And then like you're trying to deal with the limp noodle. All right, so the girl went limp noodle on the Georgia State trooper. He bodily picked her up off the ground and carried her off like the bride going across the threshold. And the video just watched him carrying her off into the distance. Old boy was strapped too. I mean, he looked like he'd been in the gym a few times, and he did not play. He just reached down, grabbed her, and she started screaming. Things are falling out of her pocket. It's like, "What are you doing? You're hurt." And just walking off. People were laughing. It was wonderful. It's my new favorite video. I will get a few text messages before I go any further. Let me just do that, and then I'm going to bring you this this section I'm calling "Protesting the Protesters," because right now there is there's video going on the major news networks that is clearly showing that people have about had it. Like, stop. And we'll talk about that momentarily. Let me grab a few text messages real quick. John from Huntsville says, "Hey, Phil, the night the NFL draft was on, I turned the TV on to see what was going on. I saw Nick Saban. I listened to him rant for a couple of minutes, and I couldn't take it anymore, so I turned the channel." So obviously,
John hates Saban, right?
John does not feel the same way as Hannah does about Nick Saban. It's painfully obvious. John, I'm pretty sure he's crying all the way to the bank about the fact that you don't like him, man. Mike from Athens says, "Any new developments on bringing Space Force back to Huntsville?" I have not heard anything on that. I don't think we're going to see anything until after the administration changes. Pray that it will. David from Athens says, "Phil, those tornadoes caused massive power outages up here in Huntsville and the rest of the Tennessee Valley, lasting for a week or more." I do recall, brother. I got family up there. It says, our little subdivision, East Limestone County, lost power from 20 to 40 minutes, and a lot of us used our good fortune to help those that were in need. David, thank you for that. That's a great story. It really is. Yeah, it was amazing to look at a map and look at my Senate district, which at the time, 2011. Yeah, so at the time I had northern St. Clair, all of Etowah, southern DeKalb, and almost all of Cherokee counties. So picture that northeast corner. That was my Senate district number 10. and the tornado long track came almost to the edge. I mean, literally, like to the edge of it, and then split in two, and it made two long tracks that like just split down the middle and went on either side of my district. My district became an oasis for people that needed to get groceries or just go out to eat somewhere, and or go get their banking done because they couldn't do their banking back home, or get gas for their cars. It was really something. But I had like you could throw a rock from the district line. You could throw a rock to a place called Shoal Creek Valley, where I think 11 people died, and it was tragic, but it was literally on the other side of the line from my district. Scott from Russellville talking about the NFL draft. Bo Nix went to Denver Broncos, 12th pick. Yep, we saw that. Thank you, brother. Devin from Brownsboro. Yep, Nix went to Denver. A lot of folks corrected me on that one. John from Lexington, South Carolina says, long time ago, Huntsville had an arena football league team. I remember I went to at least one or two games. Arena football was kind of cool. It's kind of crazy. I mean, like, they had to put a net up because the field's so short. They do the kickoff. It would bounce off the net. The receiver would turn around to catch it off the net as opposed to facing the oncoming team. Basically, had to turn his back to the oncoming team to catch the kickoff. That's the thing that stuck out in my mind. That, and it was very fast-paced, and you could tackle somebody, and they'd, like, almost like in hockey where you slam them against the boards. Anyway. Scott from Somerville says, I never knew Huntsville was renowned for their beaver population. I know. Beavers and trash pandas. It's a thing. Brand new in the text line, Bobby from Moulton. Bobby, glad you're there. You called earlier, and we're glad to have you around. Says catfish toss from Bama to Tennessee. Since the mullets are being tossed from Florida, I see. You know what? This is catching on quick. Catfish toss
Could be a thing. I'm telling you.
Could be a thing, man. Who
I don't
knows?
know. Catfish got that barb though. I think it's still sticky.
Yeah, you got to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, but that, you know what? The best sports are the ones where you have the risk of physical injury.
Yeah. True.
That's why, and I'm about to anger some people, that's why golf is not a real sport. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that? Only because I can't play. JT Lacey Springs says, NFL tidbit, last time Auburn had a first-round pick was 2020. Last time Bama didn't have one was 2008. Thanks, JT. Appreciate you. Thanks. Dang. Steve from Huntsville says, Colonel, the world is on fire, and my heart felt like I need to say this for someone. God loves you. Steve, thank you for that. And I was talking to someone just a few moments ago who I think had a rough day and probably need to hear that. And yes, indeed. Mike from Huntsville says, if Columbia University doesn't know what to do, I bet the Alabama National Guard will be willing to take a road trip. Put them on orders, man. Carpe per diem. Go up there and do what they do. I'm just saying, it could be good. I got a caller on the line. I will take that real quick. Is that Brian? Brian from Huntsville. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Doing okay, sir, but I listened to your monologue, and I anticipate your next segment as far as resisting some of these college Hamas-supporting rioters. Goodness. And I will say that no skin color is better than another. That said, though, God happened to choose my skin color to be white. I didn't choose that. God chose my DNA to be that of a male. I married a woman whose DNA was chosen by God. Now, I chose and choose to be a born-again Christian, and I believe in the Trinity. I chose to join the Army to defend our Constitution, which I read and I read and I still study. I chose to be a right-side ruffian. Now I need some advice, please, in what other ways than these may I help offend some snowflakes today, because I am a white, straight, married, veteran Christian conservative.
Well, brother, aside from the fact that you live in the land of the SEC, I don't know what else you could possibly say to offend some of them. But just keep doing what you're doing, brother, and we'll think up some more categories to divide them away. How about that?
Thanks for the tips.
See you, man.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Goodbye.
Oh yeah, these snowflakes. So that's a great segue. I'll tell you what. I'm going to jump back in after this break. I got to tell you, when you've lost John Fetterman, and your biggest concern is bananas, it's a strange day for the libs. So yeah, we're gonna take a break right now. We'll come right back from this break, and we're gonna jump on into Dipper number 3, protesting the protesters. Y'all, it just gets thick. And listen, like I said, when you've lost John Fetterman and bananas are verboten, it's a whole new day. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, by the way, we're getting close to go home time. I know some of y'all are looking forward to it. So let's take you all the way to the top of the hour. So the protests going on, we're hearing all about how the protesters, this is very important. We're going to go out here. We're going to protest, and we don't even know what we're talking about, but we're going to do it anyway. And that's pretty much a lot of what we're seeing. Young skulls full of mush, some of whom are students, some of whom are just gullible, and some of whom are imported for the sole purpose of helping instigate these riots. And listen, some of the stuff that they're saying is just inane. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. I hope that one day they look back on these videos and go, oh my gosh, why didn't somebody stop me? Well, they tried to, but you would have none of it. You pitched your tent and you made your bed. And I hate it for them. But what's fun now is watching them wear out their welcome. And so I named this dipper Protesting the Protesters, because what you're seeing now is people on both the left and the right are saying, you know what, that's about enough of that. Now, what's crazy is, I don't know why, nobody would do this during the summer of love with Black Lives Matter. So I'm trying to analyze now from the standpoint of, are we seeing these protests go as far as they are, but yet they're cracking down on them now because people were fed up with what happened to Black Lives Matter and have sort of a never again attitude? Or is the topic different? Is it like, okay, you're gonna get out there and protest race, and we're scared to stop you. You accuse us of racism, but I don't think many people in the U.S. are buying the whole "let's hate Jews" thing. It's not working. There's enough institutional memory of the Holocaust for, I think, most people to go, that is the most misguided mantra I have ever heard. Listen, when you lose John Fetterman, which, by the way, Fetterman's actually kind of fun now. I mean, now that he's there, I'm going to have to recant. I mean, he's not the bumbling, stumble along, cognitively depleted individual that I feared that he was. I still look at it and think he shouldn't have run. I still look at it and think, Pennsylvania, what were you doing? Why'd y'all push this guy with a stroke through the election process? But now that he's in, Fetterman has been surprising people. The left is like, wait, you're supposed to be our guy. Anyway, Fetterman came out recently and just slammed these college students. Story on the Daily Wire says, in a recent interview on News Nation, he talked about how many of them have gone violent. There's been hundreds of arrests. And he said this, he said, quote, "It's a great American value to protest, but I don't believe living in a pup tent is really helpful to Hamas." He said, it's very clear that there's a germ of anti-Semitism in all of these protests. He then went on to highlight like some of the anti-Semitic remarks that he's seeing at Columbia University, where like one student was shouting, "Zionists don't deserve to live." Okay. He said this, he said, "I support peace and I support a two-state solution." That's his opinion. But anyway, he says, "But if the stuff hits the fan, I'm going to lean in on Israel." That's exactly what I've done. He said, "Everyone has a right to defend yourself as a nation, but you also have the right, I believe, to go after and eliminate Hamas, or at least to force them to surrender. Hamas could end it right now, immediately," he said. "They could release the last hostage, they could surrender, and all the misery and the death and destruction would end right there." Wow. That's John Fetterman. That's the liberal Democrat, a stroke victim from Pennsylvania. But nonetheless, one of the funniest moments, you can find it posted on my social media, by the way, at Sin Phil Williams, and also on Rightside Radio, I believe, but on Twitter. So I don't know if you saw this, Big Rig. It's very important you understand. Some people in the world apparently have a fatal banana allergy. Don't laugh, man. This is serious business.
I can't wait to hear this one.
Fatal banana allergy. So snowflakes at UCLA set up what they call their liberated zone. Had their tents, had their little bongos beating and drums and talking and wearing their keffiyehs and dancing. And somebody in that protest zone thought it'd be very important to put up a sign saying that within the zone there's a potentially fatal banana allergy. And so they wanted everybody to leave bananas out of it. I kid you not. I'm looking at the story right now from Twitchy. It's just one of many opportunities to read this story. Just go ahead and Google banana UCLA Palestine, and I guarantee you'll find it. But so, yeah, it's all around Camp Nitwit. They went ahead and posted up their signs warning everybody, don't bring bananas. Bananas are bad. Hey, we have someone here like with a banana allergy, so don't bring any of the fruit banana stuff. Well, you can imagine what happened. So the next day, the pro-Israel protesters came back with bananas.
That's hilarious.
And they started dancing around with their Israeli flags draped around their necks, eating bananas and dancing and taunting the the pro-Hamas sympathizers.
Wow.
Literally, one woman, one of the this is how snowflakish they are. One of them got on their social media and went, they came back waving bananas like they were machine guns or something. and then somebody reported it to the administration.
They've got bananas.
Somebody tweeted, do you know if the school stepped in yet? This is vile. Imagine organizing a protest to include focusing on someone's individual medical conditions and taking actions to try and harm them. Somebody responded back, it's been reported, but UCLA's not done anything yet. How bad is this? The social media blew up. So I know we're almost out of time for this moment, but like one of them said, I'm sorry, I have a violent Hamas sympathizer allergy. If I show up to your protest, you must leave immediately. Someone else just talked about how, they didn't need to be catered to constantly. Somebody else tweeted out, they got to stop sending Zionists these advanced weapon systems.
Apparently, it's very rare for this banana allergy.
Did you look it up?
Yeah, it's very rare. And it's like itchy throat and scratchy skin or something.
It's not
like
deadly?
No.
I just can't imagine.
Can't find anything about it being deadly.
Somebody else tweeted, we advise against concealed carry. They get rather mushy. This is awesome. Protesting the protesters. Apparently, bananas are a trigger in some liberal circles. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. More on this. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, y'all. I'm talking about Alabama. And this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi. All thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, I got to tell you who else covers a lot of ground. That's our friends at Southern Immediate Care. Southern Immediate Care is a chain of clinics that covers like a lot of ground in North Alabama. Places like Gadsden, Anniston, Attala, 6 more locations around the Birmingham area. Every single one of them open 7 days a week. They will see all ages, and I always say geriatric down to pediatric. They'll see all of them. And folks, I'm just be honest with you. This is who I use personally, and I have for quite a while. Southern Immediate Care is great. I mean, I literally, every time I walked in the door of one of their facilities, it was always, so clean and professional and friendly and get you in, get you out. So yeah, I thought, you know what, I could brag on this, man. I could. And I went to them and I said, would you consider? And they said, you know what? Yes. Turns out the chain was owned by a Rightside ruffian, so that kind of helped. But yeah, Southern Immediate Care, clinics everywhere. If you need medical attention, even on a Saturday, you look them up, find the location nearest to you, and just head on down. And by the way, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that. I'm about to go to the phones. It's not on the board, but I think we got somebody on the phone. But let me say this real quick. I just got a text from Mr. Hill from Pumpkin Center. He says, I am pro BMDs. That's bananas of mass destruction. Let me go to the phone, man. Is somebody on there? Oh, is that Jeff? Jeff Rowe from Indiana. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana. Daylight come and me won't go home.
They should have gone and played that on loudspeaker in front of that whole protest zone.
I think they should have.
And how about, yes, we have no bananas. We have no... I could see it, man. There's got to be plenty of banana songs out there we can come up with.
Or just somebody show up as Banana Man.
And then there was the theme song from the Banana Splits back when you and I were both kids. That's I can just see it.
Yeah,
wow.
But I can't remember it. I know who you're talking about. It's Hanna-Barbera, baby.
Hanna-Barbera had all the good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what do you think about this, man? Protesting the protesters. I mean, they've lost John Fetterman. They're getting dragged off their campuses right now. We're still waiting to find out what Columbia University is going to do. But in the red states, at the very least, you're seeing protesters being dealt with.
Yeah. My twist on this is who's funding all this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you got some leaders, and then you got a lot of lemmings, because the lemmings have no clue what they're doing. They're just following the leader,
Right.
And can it be that if we know that there's going to be crimes committed and everything, does this be a conspiracy? Any kind of criminal activity, that if you're funding a criminal activity, could you be kind of a racketeering charge or anything? Or is there anything you can be charged with if you're funding disturbances like this?
That's a yes and a no. So here's the thing. You got to have what they call proximate cause. You got to have the ability to prove, and you could have civil penalties as much as you could have, criminal. So you could sue somebody for property damage. You could sue them for, threats and harassment. You can sue them for different things. You can even sue them for mental or emotional distress based upon the fact you can't go to class, you paid all this money for tuition or whatever, depending upon the various state laws. But here's the thing, man. I had an article last week. A lot of these organizations, the background organizations, are being funded by George Soros's, Open Societies organization, and go figure. But that being said, if they give a grant to an organization, money's fungible. All they have to do is say, well, it didn't go for that, and so you have to prove the causal connection from the money to the crime, and then the conspiracy for the money to come there for the crime. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering about that, because, like I say, it's almost like a racketeering thing. It's like we're trespassing, and we have these demands, and we're not going to move, until you meet these demands. It'd be kind of like, the gang going into the Chinese restaurant saying, hey, pay up, buddy, or something bad's going to happen here. So it's almost like a racket. It's like something like that, I would think.
Now, if you can find if you can find a silver bullet, like the smoking gun, if you can find an email or a recording of a meeting or a Zoom call or something where they said, okay, listen, we're going to send you a grant. Use that money to go and screw something up. Use that money to go and tear things down on campus and make sure you shut down the campus and make demands they can't answer, and we'll pay you for it. If you find that, it's game on, man. But the question is, in some of these venues, like in New York City, they're more worried about trying Trump for a misdemeanor. They could care less about stuff like this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even if they did pick up these people on any kind of charge other than basically murder, there's no bail. They just let them on out and go back to the protest, So
oh, yeah, exactly.
Go through the revolving door of getting arrested.
Well, but you know what the other fun part of this is? They may not wind up seeing much in the way of these criminal penalties for being arrested at the scene, but a lot of them are about to start losing their college careers. They're going to get suspended from campus. They're going to lose the ability to transfer their credits, and their scholarships are going to be gone. And they're going to hope somebody somewhere will let them come because they have a big high ACT score, and most campuses are going to look at them and go, "Yeah, thank you anyway, but no."
Well, if Columbia and stuff would have the kahunas to sit there and back up what they're saying, is don't cross this line, don't cross this line, don't cross this line, and just keep backing up and put some teeth in it, they would disperse immediately if they start to take away their scholarships and their diplomas and everything else.
Yeah, the problem with this, too, is the local municipalities are not always a help. I mean, New York City's dragging its feet on doing something. The NYPD's not able to get called in. And then, like Charlene was telling me this morning, that in Washington, D.C., the mayor is refusing to, I think she said that the mayor was refusing to allow the authorization for the Washington police force to be called in at George Washington University.
So in Washington, if somebody gets hurt that called the police and they don't show up, can they charge her with dereliction of her duties?
I would hope so. But the best thing they could also do is vote her out next time. But that's, it's just amazing how much they get away with. Well, it's good to be a liberal, right?
We're talking about Washington, Phil. Look at Marion Barry or whatever, cocaine and everything else and stuff. And they just kept electing the same guy back, even though he's a drug addict.
Oh boy, smoked crack with hookers, and next thing you know, he probably hung out with Hunter Biden. But still, wow. All right, man. Hey, listen, where are you right now?
I'm climbing the hill out of Nashville Valley here. I'm on the good end of Nashville.
Oh, good deal. All right, well, be safe on the road. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one, Phil.
See you, buddy. So Monty from Huntsville just texted in and says, what about all the matching T-shirts and camping gear? Isn't that I absolutely think so. I mean, we were sitting in the studio last week before anybody was talking about this, and Big Rig and I were looking at the screen,
All the tents were exactly the same. Like they bought it at like a department store.
Like somebody ran down to Walmart and said, we need every tent you've got. Mm-hmm. Here's the credit card. I'd like to know. Mm-hmm. I'd like to know. John C. from Madison said the students should be expelled and trespassed. The professors that are involved should also be fired immediately with no pension. I'm with you, John C. Brian from Huntsville, why do snowflakes not get baptized? Because most melt in water. Okay. Brian from Decatur says, where is Darwin when you need him the most? Yeah, the Darwin Awards. We're going to find some stuff. So, interesting thing. There's somebody who's running for president that just got arrested at one of the protests. Did you know this? Green Party candidate, like the long shot, not going to do anything in the big picture candidate, Jill Stein, who, by the way, is a long-time avid feminist. But Jill Stein was arrested protesting on the campus of Washington University in St. Louis. But she's so proud of it, she posted it to her presidential campaign website. Here's the presidential candidate getting arrested at a pro-Palestinian protest. The only thing that Biden's worried about is she's going to steal about 100 of his votes. But still, that's amazing to me that somebody who is a nationally known figure is out there Susan Sarandon, the actress, was out there with the protesters. Of course, Ilhan Omar, who's a member of Congress, was out there with the protesters. It's nuts. Cal Poly, they're sick of it. So Cal State Polytechnic in Humboldt, California, issued a statement to all the brats who have commandeered two. By the way, I saw some video of the damage they've done. They've gone through and graffitied the interior hallways of the school and seized buildings. There's 2 buildings that the school's not even able to get into, which I'm like, what are you talking about can't get into? Are they in there? Are they armed? Are they holding Molotov cocktails and zip guns? What's happening in there? They have one, they call it Intifada Hall. They've taken over a school building and called it, anyway. By the way, Intifada is a word that many take to mean killing Jews. But the school issued a statement. They're not having it anymore. They're basically saying this is over with. And they said the concern is the ongoing unlawful occupation of campus buildings by students and non-students and other criminal acts like vandalism, theft, destruction of property, and intimidation of employees. These ongoing occupations have created safety hazards. All right, it's fair enough, but what are they going to do about it? They're saying it has nothing to do with free speech. They're right, but what are they going to do about it? But then they come back and they say it's too early to assess the cost of illegal activities. We estimate it in the millions. Wow, okay, but what are they going to do about it? They're sick of it. But the true cost is not doing something. So here's the deal, Cal Poly. Go get them out of there. And then press charges. And not like a little bit. Search all their social medias and find pictures where they're crowing about spray painting the hallways and then press charges. It's not rocket science. Or you could throw a banana at them. That works too, I understand. So apparently, like to get rid of a vampire, it's a cross and some garlic. But with pro-Palestinian protesters, it's a banana. That's the way it works.
Makes sense.
I see this now as there's a movie coming. I feel certain. Somebody's going to make a little movie short, and it's going to be Babylon Bee needs to make a movie out of this. All you got to do is throw a banana at them, quell the riot. Don't bring the tear gas. Just bring the Chiquita banana and call it done. All right, take me to the last break of the day, brother. We'll do that right now. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. I'll get a few more text messages, and I'll tell you about a couple more moments where campus protests are being protested. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, I got to tell you guys, in case you hadn't already heard, we announced it last week. Rightside Media is the parent of Rightside Radio. Rightside Media just launched its next level of conservative content. It's a video podcast available on our website at rightsideradio.org. So rightsideradio.org. You can go to the podcast tab. And there's a brand new thing there called The Right Philosophy. It's a video podcast. I film it at my house. Picture like my monologues that I do at the beginning of the show, but in video form, I'm saying, the things that you've come to expect from the show, like matters of faith and patriotism and military service and work ethic and, the principles of our Constitution. And anyway, we've got 4 episodes up there right now, and the 5th episode should land on Wednesday. Just finished filming it this past weekend, so stand by for that. But yeah, we're pretty excited about it. So now we have the of course the hub still remains the radio live every day, 3 hours on multiple stations around North Alabama, and generating even audience interaction with neighboring states. And then there's also the fact that Big Rig takes the live show every day, turns it into a podcast of its own, puts it out there where folks can get to it, and that one's like going crazy. And so that's all cool. And then we've got my latest op-ed came out today. And 1819 usually runs it first on Mondays, and then about a dozen or more news outlets around the state pick it up later. And now we've added video podcasting. So check it out. Rightsideradio.org has got all our stuff on it. And you can go right there and get it. So JT from Lacey Springs just texted in. He says, a crowd dispersal method. Start turning off their cell phones. Brother, you are right. In fact, I've thought about this. What if they brought in some type of a jammer? Because they have those. What if they jammed the signal? Of course, that would also impact emergency services and other people who are innocent bystanders. But yeah, I am almost positive that there's a means by which you can selectively target an area and make it impossible for people to use their cell phone. I say go for it. And here's the other thing. Turn off the Wi-Fi. Make them burn through their data. But if they're over there using their campus Wi-Fi, shut her down. Anyway, there's ways. I mean, next thing you know, there won't be any batteries in the Game Boy, and they won't know what to do. Kelly from insurance. Kelly says insurance companies should refuse to pay college damages due to inaction to take prudent. That's a great point, Kelly. That's a great point. By the way, would you amend Kelly's? It should be Kelly from Huntsville. It just says Kelly right now. But yeah, that's a great point, because if they're not going to do something to clear these people out, and then they're going to apply for an insurance reimbursement later because of damage to the property. Wow. John from Huntsville says, Phil, I have to say you lost all of your 10 extra points. What? But I'll still give you a solid A, which is still way better than the B- I gave to Hannah Stevens, which means today's winner is obviously Big Rig with an A++.
So I won by default.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not sure what I did. I guess the fact that I allowed her to talk about Nick Saban was all he needed.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of Nick Saban comments. So
too many. Just too many, I suppose. By the way, as I wrap up this day, let me just tell you. So protesting the protesters, what's amazing to me is these snowflakes and the things they ask for, the demands they make. So the AP has a story. Came out yesterday. College protesters want amnesty. Let me get this straight. They want to take over part of the campus. They want to wreak havoc. They want to shut down the school that people are paying tuition to attend. They want to listen, what's the cost for the law enforcement response to all this? It's epic, because the amount of overtime you're having to bring in off-duty officers to do stuff. So, yeah, Mariam Alwan figured the worst was over after New York City police in riot gear arrested her and other protesters, loaded them onto buses, and held them in custody for hours. Story on the AP. But the next evening, the college junior received an email from the university. She and other students were being suspended. No. Their Gaza solidarity encampment tactics across the campuses around the nation have not been falling upon favorable terms. And they're now finding themselves going, well, Well, you're not gonna. I mean, you're not gonna like. There's not gonna be like consequences for our behavior, is there? I mean, the worst mommy ever did was give me a timeout, and I couldn't like play my video games for at least an hour, and that was. She said, this particularly sad little snowflake figure says, "This feels very dystopian." Okay, whatever. Yeah, dystopian, like the end of the world as we know it. Listen, all said and done, America's still here. We are still here. Our flag is still flying. And when in doubt, throw a banana at them. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys have an amazing night. We'll see you tomorrow.